In Matthew 24, and especially in chapter 25, as we were reading through this week, really kind of noticed a theme going on about being ready. And we talked a little bit about that this morning with the idea of being prepared when it comes to telling others about Jesus. But the reason we want to be prepared to tell others is because we know it's on all of us to be ready. And I see examples of that again all around in culture. I talked about Chuck and his jumper cables this morning. As I was going through the line, I was kind of late in the line coming through for lunch today, and I saw someone go back and get the emergency box of chicken because the chicken was starting to run out, and they're ready. They're ready with more to make sure everybody gets the food that they need. And for us, when it comes to our Christian walk, we're called to be ready because we don't know when this is done. And we don't know when this is done in the sense of when Jesus is going to come back. We don't know the day and the time of that because it's not for us to know. But maybe even more applicable to all of us is we don't know our day. We don't know if it's going to be today. We don't know if it's going to be 20 years from now, 40 years from now. We have no idea when our last time will be here. And so we need to be people who are always going to be ready. And we get that in everything else in life. And yet sometimes when it comes to spiritual things, we don't. I mentioned Chuck and his jumper cables this morning. If you were to go into our garage and you were to walk down into the storm shelter that's in there, you would find an orange Home Depot bucket at the bottom of that shelter. And there are some snacks in there that are probably expired and I need to go replace with new ones again. There's toilet paper and paper towels, and there's a case of bottled water sitting next to it, and there's a couple flashlights and a radio and all of this stuff. So if we ever find ourselves in there, we've got the things that we need to get through however long it may be. And usually it's 10 minutes, and we never need any of those things. But if the time comes, we're ready for whatever comes along. In Matthew 24, Jesus says this, starting verse 36, "Concerning that day and hour, no one knows, not even the angels of heaven, nor the Son, but the Father only," which is why every time in culture there is one of those moments where someone is convinced that the end is going to come on this day. I don't know if you remember the Mayan calendar thing several years ago now, that it ran out and that means everything's going to be over and they're just convinced, or some Nostradamus prophecy that happened somewhere way back when. And usually those are the days that I think to myself, well, I don't know a lot of things, but I know it's not today, because there's no way it's going to be the day everybody's saying. No one knows the day or the hour, not even the angels or the Son, but the Father only. For as were the days of Noah, so will be coming the Son of Man. So think about the days of Noah. Think about what it would have been to be there in that day and time, and the way we understand it from Scripture is that it had reached the point where the thoughts of men were just evil all the time, and God had had enough, and yet people didn't understand what was going on. And then people saw their crazy neighbor start to build a giant boat and wondered, what in the world is that about? And could you imagine what that would be like? And he builds and he builds and he builds, and they don't understand that he's preparing for something that is real. And so they are completely unprepared for what's coming. For in those days before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, just living life, doing the normal things that we do, until the day when Noah entered the ark, and they were unaware until the flood came and swept them all away. So will be the coming of the Son of Man. So what we know, and everybody again tries to figure out about all these, there will be wars and rumors of wars and all of that stuff always happens, doesn't it? You know, that's kind of the way of the world. And people will be convinced there's some sort of sign that they can read to know, I've got this much time to figure it out, and you don't. We're just called on to be ready. And like all of these people were living life in the days of Noah, today, everybody's just kind of living life, doing what they do, not thinking. And honestly, if we're honest with ourselves, we probably don't think about it a whole lot either. I know we hear it on the ends of prayers, unless God comes back before we meet again, but do we really anticipate that we won't be here Wednesday night because he shows up on Tuesday? And because of that, we kind of get lulled into this, it'll be okay, there's time to fix it, there's time to make it all right, everything will be fine. And so Jesus says instead, therefore, you must be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an hour you do not expect. So you must be ready. And we probably have all been at that point in just regular life things too, where you try to be prepared, but something comes along that surprises you and you're not prepared. And something comes along and you're not ready for it. So Jesus tells us you must be ready. That is the key to so much of what we do in our Christian walk, is to be ready whenever things come to an end, that we're in the right place that we need to be. And then he tells 3 stories, and we'll talk about these stories and then we'll be done. In Matthew 25, verse 1, he says, "Then the kingdom of heaven will be like 10 virgins who took their lamp and went to meet the bridegroom. 5 of them were foolish and 5 were wise. For when the foolish took their lamps, they took no oil with them, but the wise took flasks of oil with their lamps." So you have these 2 groups. You have one group that is prepared for if the oil runs out, they're going to be able to continue on, and another group that is not prepared for that. And as things happen, everything takes longer than it's supposed to for the bridegroom to show up, and they run out of oil, these 5 foolish ones. And so they go to the 5 wise ones, and they say, "Would you loan us some oil?" And the wise ones say, "No, because then we won't have any oil." So these 5 foolish ones go out to try to find oil, to buy oil, and then the bridegroom shows up. And they're not ready. The 5 wise ones who are there, they're ready. But the others, when they show up again, he doesn't know who they are because they weren't where they were supposed to be when they were supposed to be. So he says at the end of that parable, "Watch therefore, you know neither the day nor the hour." So first of all, as we're trying to be ready, we need to recognize that being ready is wise, not foolish. And maybe some in our world might want to try to tell us that being ready sounds kind of boring and not all that exciting. You need to just live life as fun as you can for as long as you can, and then fix it all in the end. But again, you don't know the day or the hour. The wise thing to do is to be ready, as these 5 with the oil that were ready to go, those 5 were wise and the other 5 were foolish. And then he tells another story. In verse 14 he says, "For it will be like a man going on a journey, who called his servants and entrusted to them his property. To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, to another 1, to each according to his ability. Then he went away. He who had received the 5 talents went at once and traded with them, and he made 5 talents more. So also he who had the 2 talents made 2 talents more. But he who had received the 1 talent went and dug in the ground and hid his master's money." And we find that as the master comes back, he's not too excited with the 1 talent guy. The 5 talent guy, he's happy, and he says that he has been a good and faithful servant. The 2 talent guy, he says the same thing, that he's been a good and faithful servant, but when he reaches that 1 talent guy, it's not good and faithful anymore. It's a very different kind of message. And we learn that being ready is good and faithful, but not is wicked and sinful. If we are not ready, it's not just that we're not prepared, it's that God views that as wicked and sinful. And those are not things that we want to be. Now, the 1 talent guy didn't set out to be that, did he? He set out kind of acting out of fear and being unsure of himself, and yet he is described by the master as being wicked and sinful. So we are ready to be wise, we are ready to be good and to be faithful. And then he tells a third story, which seems really kind of unrelated, unless you're looking at them all in context and also looking at them with that statement toward the end of chapter 24, that this is all about being ready. He says this, "When the Son of Man comes in his glory, and all the angels with him, then he will sit on his glorious throne. Before him will be gathered all the nations, and he will separate people one from another, as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. And he will place the sheep on his right, but the goats on the left." Not an image that our world probably likes all that much, and maybe might make us a little fearful too, but he's breaking these people into categories. Here's the one group that is doing the thing that they should be doing, and another group that's not, and he is the judge of which is which. So he separates these sheep from the goats. And it says that the king will say to those on his right, "Come, you who are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. I was naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came to me." And I find myself, as I read through these things, thinking, what does any of this have to do with judgment? You know, isn't judgment about who's been baptized and who's come to church and who's, tried to do the right things and stay away from sin and all of that? And now he's laying out all of these things that we are doing or not doing to other people. Then the righteous will answer him, saying, "Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you drink? And when did we see a stranger and welcome you, or naked and clothe you? And when did we see you sick or in prison and visit you?" And it's easy for us to totally miss something about the righteous here, which is they don't even know they're doing it. Isn't that amazing? It's not God has put these two options out in front of you that are so obviously right or obviously wrong, and you're making a conscious decision that I'm going to do this one. This is who these people are. They are people who, by nature, not knowing who these other people are or that they're going to gain anything for it, they naturally serve in one way or another. And so they do all of these things, but they don't know how is it they're doing it for the king. And the king answers them in verse 40, "Truly I say to you, as you did it to one of the least of these, my brothers, you did it to me." So as you were doing all of these things, loving other people, it is love for God that you are showing in the midst of that. And then he finishes the story by saying the other side of everything, which is you didn't do all of these things. And when you don't do all of these things, you end up in a place that you don't want to be, where there is weeping and gnashing of teeth, and you don't know me and I don't know you, because this is not who you are. Being ready is doing good for others, not ignoring those in need. And again, we don't generally think about this in terms of being right with God, and yet when Jesus tells these stories, this is one of them, that if you're going to be right with God, you're going to be people that are doing things for those in need. In Romans chapter 10, Paul kind of ties this idea together in this way. He says, "How then will they call on him in whom they have not believed? And how are they to believe in him whom they've not heard? And how are they to hear without someone preaching?" As we think about what we talked about this morning, the idea of evangelism, the idea of the responsibility that we have to be salt and light and let others know about Jesus, how are they going to hear if no one is preaching the message? And before we get caught up on preaching, proclaiming, telling, saying, this is up to us to give this message to others. And how are they to preach unless they are sent? As it is written, how beautiful are the feet of those who preach the good news. We should be ready, and we should be helping others, as we read about in Matthew 25, because we want to help them to be ready too. We want everyone to be ready for when he comes back. And we understand that no one knows when that's going to be, and it could be today, or it could be tomorrow, or it could be long after we're gone. We don't know. But we do know the importance of being ready for when he comes. So this afternoon, if you are not ready, this is the time to be ready. And if you are unsure and you think to yourself, well, I will do all these other things and then I eventually will get there. Most people find that if you are not willing to make the change now and you have some future date in mind when this change is going to happen, usually the change doesn't happen. So if you are waiting to New Year's to make New Year's resolution about exercise or whatever resolution you might make, chances are between now and New Year's you're going to forget about that. You're going to do something else. Or if you think to yourself, I will jump into this habit and do this thing, and I'll start next month. We're already in September. I'll live September out and do whatever, and then I'll get there in October. You probably won't get there. And for too many people, they think, I can just live however now, and then somewhere along the way I'll make the change and live in the right way. Don't wait. Everything about Matthew 25 is immediacy and urgency and the fact that we need to be ready today and now. If you have never followed him, you can be baptized this afternoon, and your life can be different starting now, not starting next week, not starting next year, starting today. Or if for whatever reason you have fallen away and you may be thinking to yourself, well, once I get these things fixed, then I will come back. Don't wait for that. Come back to him now and fix those things as you go. But be with him again. Be ready for when he comes. If there's some way we can help you this afternoon, please come while we stand and sing.